Good afternoon. I'm Don Saltman, Vice President of the Idaho State Board of Education. I want to thank you all for joining us today, both here in person and for those of you on the phone as well. After a few brief remarks, we will take questions regarding today's decision by the State Board that Don Burnett serve as Interim President until a replacement for Dr. Nellis has been selected. In making a decision on an Interim President, the Board considered a number of highly qualified individuals. Today's decision to name Don Burnett, current Dean of UI's Law School, as the Interim President is a result of careful consideration. The Board was unanimous, as you heard, in its decision that Don was the best person to serve in this important role. I want to take just a minute to highlight a few of Don's qualifications, which are many and very impressive. Don's career has included service as an appellate judge, a practicing lawyer, a JAG officer, state bar president, law professor, and dean of 2 law schools. Don is an Idaho native. There aren't very many of us. Born in Pocatello, he received his baccalaureate degree magna cum laude in economics from Harvard, his JD from the University of Chicago, and an LLM degree from the University of Virginia. He also graduated on the Commandant's List from the Command and General Staff College of the Army. As a reserve officer in the Army Judge Advocate General's Corps, Don was the Reserve Deputy Commandant and Academic Director of the Judge Advocate General's School in Charlottesville, Virginia. He received the U.S. Armed Forces Legion of Merit for his career achievements when he retired as a colonel in 2001. Don's concurrent civilian career began as a law clerk to Chief Justice of the Idaho Supreme Court and as an Assistant Attorney General for the state of Idaho. He entered private practice in Pocatello, becoming president of the Idaho State Bar, chaired the bar's Professional Conduct Standards Committee, served as a contract judge of the Shoshone-Bannock Tribal Court, and served as executive director of the Idaho Judicial Council. In 1982, he was appointed to the newly formed Idaho Court of Appeals by Governor John Evans, and he was retained in office by a statewide election in 1986. In 1990, Don accepted the University of Louisville's appointment as a dean of their law school, a position he held for 10 years. In 2002, Don accepted the position as dean of the law school here at the University of Idaho. He currently chairs the university's Ethical Guidance and Oversight Committee and is the coordinating dean of the university's interdisciplinary water resources, environmental science, and professional science master's degree programs. He has received the Idaho State Bar's Distinguished Lawyer, Outstanding Service, and Professionalism Awards. The board is very pleased that Don is willing to take on the role and responsibilities of interim president, and we have full confidence in his ability to lead the university during this time of transition. At this time, I'd like to introduce to you Don and Karen Burnett. Don, his wife Karen. And just as an aside, in the spirit of collaboration, I'd like you to know that Karen has degrees from ISU, BSU, and the University of Idaho. We also want to take this opportunity to again thank Dr. Nellis for his leadership of the University of Idaho, and the board wishes him and his wife, Ruthie, all the best. I'd like to turn the time over to Dr. Nellis for a few remarks at this time.
Thank you, Don, and thank you all for being here today. And this is an important occasion as we transition to Don Burnett as the interim president, and I'm very, very excited that he'll provide excellent leadership as we move forward. I'd like to thank all of you for being here today, and certainly thank our Board of Regents, the State Board of Education, for their support of Ruthie and me as we've worked through the challenges and opportunities of the last 4 years. It's been an exciting opportunity to be here, and we'll be forever grateful. And the University of Idaho will always have a very special place in our hearts as we move on to our next assignment. As a university community, we generated many positives over the last 4 years. It's all of us working together for the success we've had. And I believe the appointment of Dr. Burnett as interim president ensures positive momentum as we move forward in positioning the University of Idaho not only in our region, but our nation and the world. You know, we're blessed at this university with many academic, research, and administrative leaders across this land-grant university that will keep this institution moving forward in again, very positive ways. And I'm confident that our interim president, Dr. Burnett, will build on our success even as we search for a permanent president. I'm proud of the student-centeredness of this institution and what it means, and I believe that focus will continue strongly with Don Burnett. I certainly remain committed to my job here at the University of Idaho over the next couple of months, and look forward to working with Dr. Burnett as we transition to his leadership. I believe Dr. Burnett will also work to keep our institution moving forward as one of our nation's leading 21st century land-grant research universities. And Ruthie and I will certainly do all we can to assist Dr. Burnett and Karen in this transition, and we look forward to working with them. Thanks again to all of you who continue to make this university what it is today, a very special place. And again, Ruthie and I have been honored to be part of the University of Idaho and the Vandal family. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dwayne, for your outstanding leadership. You will certainly be missed. At this time, I'd also like to introduce a couple other members of the State Board. Member Bill Gosling. Bill, if you would. And the Executive Director of the State Board of Education, Mike Rush, Dr. Mike Rush. At this time, we will take questions. I know that some of those questions may be about the other action taken by the board of the football conference. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to defer those questions to a press conference over in Team Room A at 4:30 this afternoon. With that, we'll take questions from those here. Right after Don. Oh, I'm sorry, Don. Come on up, Don.
Thank you. Well, I won't burden your time much. President Saltman, Regent Gosling, Director Rush, Mr. President. I'm grateful to the board for offering this service opportunity, and I humbly accept. I cannot begin to tell you how much this university means to me and to my family. My parents both came from Wallace, Idaho. They attended this university. They were in this building during the Depression. To them, the University of Idaho became the gateway to the world, and everything they became and passed on to my brother and me, we all owe to the University of Idaho. If you go on the third floor of this building, you'll find a picture of my mother. Not as a dignitary or a VIP, but one of the young women working in the library, which was in the administration building. She was earning 35 cents an hour when that picture was taken, and glad to have the job. Her first year, she needed to go back to Wallace for the holiday break, and she had enough money to either take the bus, nobody had cars, either take the bus back to Wallace herself or ship her gifts to her family on the bus, but not both. She got a 10-cent raise, almost on Christmas Eve, borrowed against it, and took the gifts to Wallace. But that's what it was like to go to the University of Idaho in the Depression. My father, who was a sportsman, hunted along the right-of-way between here and Pullman, not only because he enjoyed it, but because his fraternity needed the food. They did not have enough food to fill out the budget for the entire membership of the fraternity. He was chair of the executive committee of the ASUI, member of the baseball team, member of an ROTC marksmanship team that won the Army-wide competition. First time an ROTC unit had ever done that. Well, When I visited the university many years later, part of my bar service, I noticed that I had this warm feeling of tranquility and well-being when I heard the Vandal Fight song, or what my folks called Go Vandals Go. And I mentioned that to my folks who were then living, and my mother said, well, there's an explanation for that. When you were a baby and we had trouble putting you to sleep, we would walk the floor with you singing the Came a Tribe from the North Brave. And I was imprinted. I'm part of the University of Idaho. Our commitment to education runs in the family. You heard Regent Saltman mention that my loving wife, Karen, has suffered 43 years of marriage with me. One of the best educated people in the world, a degree from the University of Chicago, and degrees from each of the three major universities in Idaho, including the terminal degree, the MFA degree here in English Creative Writing from the University of Idaho. That is an ecumenical immersion in higher education of Idaho. The University of Idaho, older than statehood, as you know, will celebrate its 125th anniversary next year. It is the founding university of Idaho's higher education system, and I make a special point about that because it is a land-grant institution, and that is a point of great distinction. It is the heir to the legacy of the Morrill Act signed by President Lincoln, not long separated in time from when he signed the Territorial Act bringing Idaho into the nation. But it is one of two generations, the university is, of land-grant institutions. There is one generation that constitutes the comprehensive founding institutions of their respective states. And there are others that came later, although there's some overlap between the groups, that supplemented or added to the educational mission of their respective states. Many of them have the word state in their titles. But the University of Idaho is part of that first echelon. It came into existence on the same basis with a board of regents, like the University of Wisconsin, University of Minnesota, and other great universities of this country. It was once said, as you know, that America has had some very good ideas, but the land-grant system may have been the greatest of all the ideas, all the uniquely American ideas. And this university is part of the original founding echelon of that great idea. Initially, the university was run just by the Board of Regents. There were 3 members. And there wasn't a president then. There wasn't a chief executive officer then. The 3 regents looked at each other after about 2 years and said, one of us needs to become the chief executive and build this university. And they selected among themselves a lawyer and a judge, Judge Forney. James H. Forney said, I'll serve 1 year, which he did. And he built the framework of the university that we know today. He once recalled that he was the head of a state university with no one to worry him, no faculty, no students, nor alumni. It was the ideal situation, he said. Well, now, more than 12 decades later, standing before you is another servant of the law and a servant of this university. I will endeavor to strengthen our frameworks of excellence and to advocate for the special character and the special mission of this university. When I quoted about Judge Forney, I took it from this book with which many of you are familiar, Rafe Gibbs' book, A Beacon for Mountain and Plain. And building on the platform of achievement that has been established by President Nellis, by the other leaders and the faculty and the staff and the students of this university, when the time comes next year, in 2014, for us to celebrate our 125th birthday, and we hopefully will be celebrating the culmination and even the overachievement of our capital campaign, Inspired Futures. It will be said that from this crested hill, there does emanate a beacon that reaches mountain and plain and has never shone more brightly. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
I think now you can see why the board selected Don. With that, we'll take questions from those here in the auditorium, and then we'll ask for questions from those on the telephone.
Hi, Board Member Saltman and Board Member Gosling has questions. I think it's for both of you. I'm Joel Mills from the Tribune, if you don't remember. First of all, who's going to lead the College of Law while Dean Burnett's the interim? Who is Ben Beard going to lead the college while you're the interim president? Who's going to lead the college? This is confidential until about 25 minutes. So, TBD? Okay.
Thank you. I've done this before. I should have known that. The question was who would lead the law school. Well, first, of course, this appointment becomes effective in June, and so I'm still going to be serving the law school and then learning a second job at the same time. The duration of my service is determined by when the next president, the long-term president, takes office, and then within that time, all presidents, and deans for that matter, serve at the pleasure of the Board of Regents. And so that the duration of that service could be 12 months or it could be 12 minutes. Whatever the duration is, it will require some transition in the College of Law. And we will be meeting as a faculty in a very few days to discuss the process by which an interim dean would be appointed to take office on June 1. This is a process that would originate in discussion with the faculty, but is coordinated by the provost, Doug Baker, and by the president. So I think there'll be more information about that later.
And do you plan on returning to the college after your term as interim? Are you planning on returning to the college after?
Thank you. There's a little echo up here.
Sure.
We will see what the circumstances are, but my service here will not be a predicate to going back in the deanship. I think whoever takes over in the law school should have the benefit of working on a continuous basis, but I'm not giving up my faculty status in the College of Law, which I treasure.
So, to be clear, you're not sure if you're going to go back and be the dean after?
No, I'm quite sure. I do not expect to go back.
Oh,
as
you're
the
quite
dean,
sure you do not expect.
But my faculty status would be unchanged, and I hope I can contribute to the university in that way.
And sorry to go on, I wanted to ask the board members if Dean Burnett's reputation as quite a fierce advocate for the College of Law down in Boise was one of the factors that played into his selection. If not, what were the main factors that you saw as a board in choosing Dean Burnett?
I can't recall that even coming up as part of the conversation, the Boise Law School. I think our consideration was we wanted consistent, stable leadership here at the University of Idaho. And we felt that, in order to facilitate that transition, we needed somebody of Dean Burnett's stature and leadership ability.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Glenn Mosley, Public Radio here in Idaho. The last time we went through this, the interim was not permitted to be a candidate for the permanent position. I wonder what this is the policy this time, the same or different?
The policy is the same.
So Dean Burnett cannot become the next permanent president?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. I wonder if you could explain that policy for me, please. Why wouldn't he be able to, or why do you think that's a bad idea?
Well, I think there's two sides to that discussion. Most national search firms would tell you that you'll get a better candidate pool if the in-place person is not a candidate for the position.
I wanted to say, I think that's a good policy, and I'm entering into this job with that full understanding.
Just to be clear about that. Further questions here in the room?
Brandon Max Daily News. I was just kind of wondering if you could go over kind of the transitional process that'll take place starting now.
You know, these are two very well-qualified individuals. They both work here on campus, and I think we'll kind of let them sort out what the transition process needs to look like. You know, there's a lot of time between now and June 1st, so I think they've got adequate time to talk to each other. Please, President Nellis.
Certainly, and Don and I actually were talking on the phone this morning a little bit about that, but I want this transition to go as smoothly as possible, and Don and I will be meeting regularly, going over details about some of the opportunities and challenges right now existing for the university, and because I want this to be as seamless as possible so that we keep the positive momentum for the University of Idaho as we move forward. So there'll be many opportunities. Don and I have a great relationship anyway, and look forward to working with him as we develop this transition.
Thanks.
Any other questions here in the room? Seeing none, any questions on the phone? Hearing none, does that conclude our event? Marilyn is shaking her head, so with that, this conference is over. Thanks.